Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Find yourself a comfortable place right now. Maybe you're already lying down, your head resting softly against a pillow, the room dim and gentle around you. Maybe there's a blanket nearby, or a quiet window letting in the last pale light of the evening. Wherever you are, just let your body settle. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your hands go soft. Tonight, we're going to explore something very small and very wonderful. Something your own body does quietly, without asking your permission. Something you've felt 1,000 times and perhaps never thought too deeply about. Tonight, we're going to talk about goosebumps. Those tiny, gentle hills that rise along your arms when you hear a beautiful piece of music. That soft shimmer along the back of your neck when the evening air is cool. That wave of quiet sensation that moves across your skin like a breeze moving across a still lake. Goosebumps have been with us for a very long time, longer than cities, longer than language, longer even than the earliest human stories told around firelight. And there is something deeply comforting about that, about knowing that this small, wordless thing your body does connects you to every creature that has ever felt the cool of a morning or stood in the presence of something quietly beautiful. So breathe in slowly. Let the air come all the way in, soft and full. And then let it go. We're going to take this slowly tonight. There's nowhere to be, nothing to do, just this soft, unhurried exploration of something your skin has always known how to do, even when you didn't. Let's begin at the very beginning, not with science just yet, but with a feeling. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a forest just before dawn. The air is still. The light is that particular shade of dark blue that only exists in those few minutes before the sun begins to think about rising. And then, from somewhere deep among the trees, a single bird calls out, one long, clear note, and there it is, that soft ripple along your arms, that quiet rising of tiny hills across your skin. That is a goosebump, and it has a story. The scientific name for goosebumps is cutis anserina. It's a Latin phrase, and it's quite lovely when you say it slowly. Cutis, meaning skin, and anserina, meaning goose. So the scientists, in their careful way, named this feeling after the skin of a goose, which is, when you think about it, rather poetic for scientists. When you look closely at the skin of a plucked goose, or a chicken, or a duck, you see small, rounded bumps arranged in rows, like tiny, quiet hills across a pale landscape. And when your own skin raises those same small hills, it looks, for just a moment, just like that. Hence the name, goose skin. In different languages, people have found different birds to compare this feeling to. In French, they say chair de poule, chicken skin. In German, Gänsehaut, goose skin, same as the Latin. In Portuguese, arrepio, which sounds more like the shiver itself, like a soft word trying to become a sensation. But in every language, in every part of the world, people notice this same quiet thing happening to their skin, and they each reach gently for a bird. There's something tender about that, isn't there? the way humans everywhere looked at their own skin in a cool moment and thought, "Ah, yes, that looks like a bird. Breathe out now, slowly. Let that thought settle like a feather. Each tiny goosebump is formed by a small muscle, a very small one, so small you could not see it without a microscope. It lives right at the base of a hair follicle, which is the little tunnel in your skin from which each hair grows. This tiny muscle is called an erector pili muscle. The name means, beautifully, hair raiser. So buried in your skin, too small to see, there are hundreds of thousands of tiny muscles whose entire purpose, whose whole quiet existence is simply to raise a hair when something triggers them. Cold air, a shiver of emotion, a piece of music that catches you somewhere deep and wordless. These muscles contract all at once, all across your arms and legs and the back of your neck, each one pulling its tiny hair upright. And as each hair rises, it pulls the skin around it into a small, soft hill. Hundreds of thousands of tiny hills rising all at once, like a field of grass responding to an invisible wind. The trigger for all of this is a chemical, a messenger that your brain sends through your bloodstream and along your nerves when it wants something to happen quickly and quietly, without asking your thinking mind to get involved. That chemical is adrenaline. You've likely heard of it. It's associated with excitement and urgency. But it also arrives in softer moments, in moments of beauty, of music, of unexpected wonder. And when it does, it whispers to those tiny hair-raising muscles, and they respond. Your body has a whole vocabulary of responses that happen without your permission. Goosebumps are one of the quietest entries in that vocabulary. Not urgent, not alarming, just a gentle physical notation that something has moved through you. Something was felt. The skin remembered. Now, let your eyes go soft if they haven't already. We're only just beginning this story, and there's so much more of it ahead. Slow and quiet and full of small wonders. If you're enjoying this, feel free to leave a like on the video. It helps more people find their way here to this quiet space on evenings just like this one. There is an old world hidden inside your body. A world that was fully formed long before you were born, long before your parents were born, long before the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what they were. This old world expresses itself in small ways sometimes. In the way you flinch at a sudden sound, in the way your pupils widen in darkness, in the way your heart beats a little faster when you stand at the edge of something high, and in the way your skin raises its tiny hills. Goosebumps at their deepest root are an inheritance, a gift, or perhaps just a habit, passed down to us from ancestors who were not quite human, from creatures who lived in forests and open grasslands, who had fur rather than clothing, and who relied on that fur in ways we no longer need to think about. When a cold wind moves through a forest, an animal with fur responds by raising its hairs. Each individual hair lifts, and the spaces between the hairs fill with air. This trapped air acts as insulation, a tiny invisible blanket woven from breath and stillness, held close to the skin by thousands of upright hairs. It's the same principle as a down jacket or a thick knitted sweater. The warmth doesn't come from the material itself, really. It comes from the air the material traps. Air is an extraordinary insulator. It holds warmth so gently, so quietly. So when our ancient ancestors felt a chill, their erector peely muscles, those tiny hair raisers, would lift every hair on their bodies, creating a layer of trapped warm air across their skin. A living blanket made of nothing but their own hair and the patient air. We still do this. Your body still sends the signal. Your tiny muscles still respond. The only difference is that our hair is now so fine and short in most places that the layer of air we trap is almost nothing at all. The machinery remains perfectly intact, but the effect is reduced to something mostly symbolic. A whisper of a former function, like an old door in a wall that was once an entrance to somewhere important, but now opens onto only a small, quiet garden. Still, something in you lifts. Think about a cat on a cold morning. You may have seen this. The way a cat sitting near a window in winter seems somehow larger, fluffier, more full of itself than usual. What you're seeing is exactly this. Hundreds of thousands of tiny erector peely muscles raising each hair, creating that thick, warm layer of air. The cat is doing what your ancestors did, building a living blanket. And if you watch a cat when it's startled, when a door slams unexpectedly, or another animal appears suddenly, you'll see its fur rise in a different way. Not the soft, even rise of warmth-seeking, but a more dramatic lifting, especially along the spine and the tail. The cat seems, in that moment, to become suddenly larger. This is the second reason for hair raising, and it's the other side of Goosebump's ancient story. In the animal world, size matters enormously. A creature that looks larger seems more dangerous, more capable, more worth avoiding. So, when an animal is threatened or frightened, or trying to intimidate a rival, raising all its hairs is a way of adding visual size without any real physical change. It's a kind of gentle theater, the body saying, I am larger than I appear. Take note of me. A porcupine fish inflates with water to become a round, spiky sphere. A cobra spreads its hood. A cat raises its hackles. A threatened bird puffs all its feathers outward until it seems twice its usual size. And somewhere in the deep and ancient parts of your nervous system, the same impulse still exists. When you are startled, when you feel something that your older pre-thinking self interprets as a moment of alertness, your skin raises its little hills. Not because it will make you look larger to whatever startled you. Your sparse body hair wouldn't achieve that, even if it tried. But because the instruction is still there, written into your nerves, patient as stone, waiting to be called upon. You are, in this small and lovely way, continuous with every creature that has ever puffed itself up against the wind or the cold or the wide, uncertain world. Let that settle over you like a soft blanket. There is a particular kind of goosebump that most people find the most interesting of all. The kind that doesn't come from cold or from startlement, but from something beautiful. A piece of music that arrives at exactly the right moment. A line from a story that catches you somewhere unguarded. The sight of a vast mountain reflected in perfectly still water. The sound of rain beginning on a dry summer afternoon. This kind of goosebump has been given its own special name by researchers who study it. They call it frisson. The word comes from French, and it means shiver. But it's a particular kind of shiver, one that travels upward, often from the base of the spine or across the shoulders and up the back of the neck. A shiver of beauty, a shiver of awe. Frisson is experienced by roughly 2/3 of people. Not everyone gets it. Some people seem to simply not receive these particular music-shaped messages in quite the same way. And researchers have found that people who do experience frisson tend to score highly on a personality trait called openness to experience, a trait associated with curiosity, with imagination, with a particular kind of receptiveness to the world. So, if you feel those small, soft hills rise along your arms, when a piece of music opens up into something expansive and full, that's your openness speaking, your nervous system acknowledging something large and wordless, your skin writing a small note about what just moved through you. If you haven't already, do check out our playlist here on the channel. There are many more quiet evenings like this one waiting for you there, full of soft facts and gentle worlds to drift through. Music is one of the most reliable ways to bring on frisson, those shivers of beauty that raise the small hills along your arms. And researchers who study this have found something quite specific about the kinds of musical moments that tend to do it. It's often a moment of surprise, not an alarming surprise, not a sudden loud sound, but a gentle surprise, a chord that resolves differently than you expected, a voice that enters when you thought the piece was complete, a melody that drops into a lower, deeper register like a river finding a quieter channel. The brain, it seems, is always quietly predicting what will happen next in a piece of music. It builds a model in real time of where the sound is going. And when the music does something subtly different from what was predicted, there's a small, pleasurable burst of recognition, a moment of delighted surprise. And sometimes, in response to that delight, the erector pili muscles respond. The tiny hair raisers lift. The skin speaks. It's as if your body says, yes, that unexpected, beautiful thing. This is one of the reasons why familiar music can still give you goosebumps even after you've heard it hundreds of times. You know intellectually what's coming, but the part of your brain that processes music, that builds those moment-to-moment predictions, seems to experience it fresh each time. And when that expected and yet still surprising moment arrives, the response rises again every time, like meeting a dear friend you've known for years and still feeling genuinely glad to see them. Human beings have been making music for an extraordinarily long time. The oldest known musical instruments are flutes made from bird bones and mammoth ivory found in caves in southern Germany. They are approximately 40,000 years old. The people who made them and played them, sitting perhaps at the entrance to a cave at the end of a long day while the sky turned amber and violet, were, in all the ways that matter, just like you. They had the same nervous systems, the same erector pili muscles, the same capacity for frisson. When they played those bone flutes in the evening firelight, some of them almost certainly felt what you feel when a piece of music catches you just right. That soft ripple moving across the skin, that quiet, wordless acknowledgement of something beautiful. 40,000 years of small shivers rising and falling in the presence of music. Breathe that in slowly. There is also something called aesthetic chills, a broader category that includes frisson, but extends to other art forms as well. Looking at a painting that suddenly opens into an unexpected depth, reading a sentence that says something you had always known but never had words for, watching a performance, a dancer perhaps, or an actor in a still and quiet scene that arrives at a moment of such truth that your skin responds before your mind has even processed what it witnessed. These aesthetic chills appear to involve a part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, which is associated with reward and pleasure. And they also seem to involve the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain we associate with complex thinking, with meaning-making, with the particular human capacity to be moved by things we understand to be art. So, goosebumps from beauty are in part a reward. Your brain and body together marking a moment as meaningful, creating a physical record of something that mattered. Your skin is a kind of diary. The skin itself, it's worth pausing to appreciate, is your body's largest organ. A full-grown adult has roughly 1.7 to 2 square meters of skin, enough if you spread it flat to cover a large dining table. It weighs between 3 and 4 kilograms. It is constantly renewing itself with the outermost layer replaced entirely about every 2 to 3 weeks. And across all of that surface, embedded in its layers, are those hundreds of thousands of tiny hair follicles, each with its miniature erector pili muscle attached. Each one ready at a moment's notice to lift its small hair and raise its small hill. All that quiet machinery just beneath the surface of you, waiting for something worth responding to. The density of hair follicles varies across the body. The scalp has the highest concentration, around 1,000 follicles per square centimeter in some areas. The forearms and legs have fewer, around 70 per square centimeter. The palms of the hands and the soles of the feet have none at all. No hair follicles, and therefore no goosebumps. This is why, when you get a chill or hear something beautiful, the response moves across your arms and legs and up the back of your neck, but your hands stay smooth. Your hands, always reaching toward the world, are kept smooth and steady. There's something almost peaceful about that, isn't there? Feel your hands resting now, wherever they are, palm up or palm down, still and warm. No tiny muscles lifting anything. just quiet, smooth skin against whatever they're resting on. Now, let's slow down even further and think about cold, about the kind of chill that comes from the physical world, from a morning that arrives cooler than expected, from stepping outside into an autumn evening and feeling the air rearrange itself around you. Cold is one of the oldest and most reliable triggers for goosebumps, and the path from cool air to raised skin is quite a short and elegant one. When the temperature around your skin drops, sensory receptors in your skin detect the change and send a signal along your nervous system toward the brain. The brain, receiving this information, makes an assessment, and then it sends a message, carried by the nervous system and also slightly more slowly by the hormone adrenaline moving through the blood, to the erector pili muscles. Contract, says the message. And they do, all at once, or in waves, moving across your skin like wind moving across water. The whole sequence, from the first cool touch of air to the first visible goosebump, takes only a fraction of a second, faster than thought, faster than your awareness of it. By the time you notice the raised hills on your arm, the response has already been fully underway for a moment. Your body is faster than your mind in many ways, and in this case, the quickness is simply the old, efficient language of warmth keeping. No deliberation required. Just the cool air speaking and the skin answering. In very cold conditions, much colder than a pleasant autumn evening, the hair-raising response intensifies and is accompanied by shivering, which is the muscles of the whole body contracting and releasing rapidly to generate heat through movement. Goosebumps and shivering often arrive together in the cold, like two old friends who always travel in the same direction. Shivering can raise the body's heat production by up to 5 times the resting level. It is an extraordinary capacity, the body generating its own warmth through pure, rapid motion, and all of it entirely automatic. You don't decide to shiver, the body decides, and your awareness of it is almost incidental. There are animals that never shiver and never get goosebumps in the cold, not because they have found a way to be warm, but because they have found a different way entirely. Cold-blooded animals like lizards and frogs and fish do not regulate their body temperature internally. Their temperature changes with the environment. On a cool morning, a lizard is a cool creature. In the afternoon sun, it warms again. The erector pili response is a warm-blooded inheritance. Only mammals and birds have it, because only mammals and birds maintain a constant internal temperature regardless of the world outside. You are a warm-blooded creature, maintaining your precise internal temperature of approximately 37 degrees Celsius through a constant, quiet, unsleeping process of regulation. Goosebumps are one of the tools in that process. Small, gentle, mostly symbolic now, but still faithfully employed each time the air turns cool. Your body still faithful to its ancient promises. Feel the warmth of wherever you are right now. The warmth of your blanket, if you have one, or the warmth held in the fabric beneath you. your body made that warmth. It produced it from within, and it stays close to your skin, held there by clothing and air and the quiet physics of small spaces. You are, right now, very gently, doing the same thing a cat does on a cold morning, holding your warmth close, letting the air just outside your skin be your insulation. There is something very safe about that thought. Leave a comment if you'd like. We'd love to hear what topic you'd like to explore next on a quiet evening like this one. There is a kind of goosebump that arrives not from cold and not from music, but from something that lives in the space between bodies, in the presence of another person. You've perhaps felt it, a particular moment of connection, or the sense of being truly seen, or an unexpected act of kindness that arrives when you weren't prepared for kindness, a touch that is gentle and exactly right, a voice saying something that reaches you. Researchers call this social touch, and the skin is extraordinarily sensitive to it. There are specific nerve fibers in your skin called C-tactile afferents that respond specifically to slow, gentle touch at skin temperature. These nerves, when activated, send a signal not only to the brain areas that process touch, but to areas associated with social bonding and emotional warmth. They are, in a sense, nerves built specifically for human connection, tuned to exactly the kind of touch that another person would offer. The right warmth, the right gentleness, the right pace. When these nerves are activated in a moment of emotional resonance, of genuine human warmth, the adrenaline response that triggers goosebumps can be activated not by cold or by music, but by the simple, ancient presence of being cared for. Goosebumps of tenderness. Your skin knows the difference between a hand on your arm and the edge of a table, between someone sitting close because they want to be near you and the proximity of a stranger on a crowded train. It knows, in some wordless way, what kind of nearness it is in the presence of. This is not magic. It is biology. But the line between beautiful biology and something that feels almost magical is sometimes very thin. There is also a kind of goosebump that comes from anticipation, from the moment just before something you are looking forward to. Before the music begins, sometimes you can already feel the small shivers rising. Your body, in its wisdom, is preparing to be moved, getting ready for the chill before the chill arrives. This is called anticipatory frisson, and it suggests something wonderful about how the brain works, that the prospect of beauty is itself already a kind of beauty, that the expectation of being moved contains within it a smaller version of the moving, the minutes before the concert begins, the first pages of a book you've been looking forward to, the moment just before you see someone you love after a long time apart. These anticipatory goosebumps are your body saying something good is coming. I'm ready. I'm listening. What a patient, attentive thing the body is. Breathe slowly now. In through the nose, soft and unhurried. Hold it for just a moment, like you're holding something warm and delicate. And then let it go, easy and complete. There is research suggesting that People who experience frisson frequently have a slightly higher density of neural connections between the auditory cortex, the part of the brain that processes sound, and the regions associated with emotion and reward. More pathways, more connection, more channels for the music or the beauty to travel through on its way to becoming feeling. This doesn't mean those who experience frisson are more sensitive in some general sense, or that those who don't are missing something important. It simply means that brains are different, each one its own particular landscape of connections and pathways, and that the map through which beauty travels varies from person to person. Your experience of a piece of music is yours alone, not because the music changes, but because the landscape it travels through, the particular neural geography of you, is unique. Every goosebump you have ever experienced has traveled a path that no one else has ever traveled. Let's move now into the animal world and spend a little time there, gently, observing the many ways that erector pili muscles and their equivalents are used for warmth, for communication, for quiet expression. We've already visited the cat raising its hackles, but consider the hedgehog. A hedgehog's spines are, in fact, highly modified hairs, not soft like your arm hair, not stiff like a cat's whisker, but hardened and sharpened over millions of years of evolution into those wonderful defensive quills. Each spine is attached at its base by, you might have already guessed, an erector pili muscle. When a hedgehog curls into a ball in the presence of a threat, those erector pili muscles are doing the same fundamental work they do in your skin when you're cold. They're contracting, pulling the spines upright, arranging them into an outward-facing defensive sphere. The same microscopic muscle, the same ancient instruction, but expressed in a completely different way. The hedgehog's goosebump is an entire suit of armor. Consider now the porcupine, whose quills are also modified hairs, also raised by erector pili muscles, also arranged in patterns that communicate clear messages to the world around it. The quills at the back of a North American porcupine can be up to 30 centimeters long. When threatened, the porcupine turns its back, its most quill-dense surface, toward the threat, raises all its quills, and rattles them, producing a dry, rustling warning sound. All of this from the same kind of muscles that raise the tiny soft hairs on your arms when you hear something beautiful. The evolutionary distance between a goosebump and a porcupine's defensive display is enormous, and yet the mechanism at the root of both is essentially the same quiet instruction. Raise the hair, lift it up, let the world see what you are made of. There's something almost funny about it, imagined from a great distance. The vast range of expressions that one small muscle has found across millions of years and thousands of species, from your soft skin hills to a porcupine's magnificent rattling defense. Birds have their own version of all this. Feathers, like hairs, are raised and lowered by small muscles at their base. A cold bird will puff its feathers, lifting them all simultaneously to trap warm air in the spaces between. just as your ancestors lifted their hair. A bird that is threatened or trying to appear dominant will raise the feathers on its crown or its neck, making itself look larger and more formidable. And a bird that is content, a resting pigeon on a warm afternoon, a songbird sitting quietly in sunlight, will puff slightly and settle into itself, feathers gently lifted to hold warmth, eyes going soft. These are not goosebumps exactly, but they are the same conversation, the same body language, spoken by a different creature in a different medium. The world is full of skin and feather and fur, all of it endlessly communicating in the language of rise and settle, up and down, warmth and warning. You are part of that conversation. Every small hill on your arm is a word in a language older than any we have ever spoken aloud. Feel free to share this video with someone who might enjoy a quiet evening like this one. Someone who loves the small, wonderful things hidden in the ordinary world. There is a place in your brain that plays a central role in the goosebump response. A small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. You have two of them, one on each side, nestled deep in the temporal lobes. The amygdala is often described as the brain's emotional processing center, the place where sensory information arrives and is assessed for emotional significance. Not just fear, as it is sometimes portrayed, but the full range of emotionally meaningful experience. Joy, sadness, tenderness, wonder, awe. When you hear a piece of music that moves you, the signal travels from your ears through the auditory cortex, and then, if the music carries emotional weight, it arrives at the amygdala. And the amygdala, assessing it as significant, as something that matters, helps trigger the cascade that ends in goosebumps. It's as if the amygdala is a quiet librarian deep inside you, constantly reading the information coming in from the world and deciding, this one matters. Mark it. Remember it. And the mark it makes is sometimes a row of tiny hills along your skin. The amygdala works in collaboration with many other brain regions, including the nucleus accumbens, which we mentioned earlier in connection with reward, and the hypothalamus, which is the brain's master regulator of the body's internal environment, including temperature. It is the hypothalamus that sends the signal via the autonomic nervous system to the erector pili muscles. The hypothalamus receiving information from the amygdala that something emotionally significant is happening, joining with the temperature sensing regions to say, respond. And the skin, faithful and patient, responds. The autonomic nervous system, the part of your nervous system that controls all the body's automatic functions, has two main modes. You've likely heard them described as fight or flight and rest and digest. The more scientific terms are sympathetic and parasympathetic. Goosebumps are primarily a sympathetic nervous system response. They're associated with arousal, with activation, with a heightened state of readiness, which is interesting because many of the situations that cause them, music, beauty, a cool evening breeze, feel distinctly relaxing rather than activating. The sympathetic nervous system, it turns out, is not only for emergencies. It operates on a very wide spectrum, from mild alertness and positive arousal all the way up to full fight or flight activation. A goosebump-raising piece of music is simply a very soft, very pleasant form of sympathetic activation. Your body is alert, engaged, present, but in the best possible way. In the way of someone leaning forward in their seat slightly because they don't want to miss anything. Attentive, alive, awake, which is, in itself, a kind of gift. And then, afterward, after the music resolves, after the chill of the evening air settles into warmth, after the moment of beauty passes gently into ordinary time, the parasympathetic system takes over, gentle and slow. The muscles relax, the heart rate eases, the skin settles back to smooth. The rest after the goosebump is its own kind of peace. Right now, your body is in that settling place, soft and quiet and warm. The music of this story moving through you slowly without urgency. In medicine and science, goosebumps are sometimes used as a kind of signal, not a condition to be treated, but a piece of information the body is offering about its internal state. When doctors examine a patient, the presence of goosebumps can provide useful context. They can indicate that the body is experiencing a sudden change in temperature, common during certain fevers, when the body is actively raising its own temperature and experiences its current temperature as cold relative to where it is trying to go. This is called a rigor, and the cold feeling and goosebumps that accompany a rising fever are part of this process, but in the context of a relaxed and comfortable body. Your body, right now, warm and still. Goosebumps arrive only in the soft ways we've been exploring, as small, beautiful responses to the world, as tiny physical records of something felt. There is also a condition called cutis anserina permanens, a rare circumstance where the skin maintains a goosebump-like appearance more persistently due to certain underlying conditions. This is quite different from ordinary goosebumps and is distinct enough that researchers gave it its own name, keeping the beautiful Latin phrase but adding permanence, permanent, to distinguish it from the fleeting, lovely, normal kind. The normal kind lasts only seconds, a few seconds of skin rising and then settling again, like a ripple on water that spreads and smooths. No trace left behind. There is something almost meditative about that impermanence. The goosebump cannot be held onto. It arrives, it moves across you, and it is gone. And the trying to hold onto it, the consciousness of it, the wanting it to stay, often makes it dissipate faster. Beauty is like that sometimes. The moment you try too hard to hold it, it slips gently away. But if you simply remain open, simply remain receptive, it keeps returning. In skin, in music, in the cool air of an evening that is just beginning to understand that summer is over. Researchers who study frisson have noted that actively trying to induce it, listening to a piece of music specifically in order to get goosebumps, is less effective than simply listening openly without agenda. The goosebumps come when you are not hunting for them, when you have, in a sense, let go of the wanting, which might be something worth knowing beyond just the study of goosebumps. The most beautiful things tend to arrive when you're not desperately searching for them, but simply present, simply open, simply there, as you are right now, simply here, present in this quiet room, in this soft evening, in the warmth of whatever is wrapped around you. If you're finding this a nice way to end the day, we'd love to know. Leave a comment, say hello. Let us know what you're thinking about as you drift. We read them all on this quiet little channel of ours. Let's travel now to the natural world and find goosebumps there, not on skin, but in the patterns and responses of the living world that remind us of them. The ocean in a rising wind. You've perhaps seen this, the way a flat, calm sea begins to texture itself when wind passes over it. The surface, which was glassy and still a moment ago, develops small parallel ridges, each one catching light differently, the whole surface suddenly alive with tiny hills of water. It looks from a certain angle and in a certain light, remarkably like a field of goosebumps. The physics are different, of course. The ocean is responding to the friction of wind against water, the transfer of energy from moving air to moving surface. But the visual effect, those small, organized hills rising all across a surface that was smooth, is the same quiet language. The world, speaking in its own way about the same things. Something has moved through here, something passed. The surface has noticed. A field of grass in wind does the same thing. Each blade lifts and bends as the wind passes, and the field ripples in waves, waves that move across it in the direction of the wind, smooth and rolling, like something breathing. Like the grass has its own kind of skin, and the wind is the cool air that raises it. Farmers who have watched their wheat fields for many years can read the mood of the wind in the way it moves the grain. A light wind makes gentle, slow waves. A strong gust makes the whole field bow at once, sudden and dramatic. The ripple of a gust moving through a field of tall grass is one of the most peaceful sights in the natural world. All that quiet movement, all those small individual stems participating in something larger than any of them. Your goosebumps are something like this. Individual muscles, each doing their small thing, but all doing it together in a coordinated wave, creating something visible and meaningful across the surface of you. Each muscle too small to see, together, impossible to miss. Sand dunes are shaped by wind in ways that also carry this echoing quality. The windward sides of dunes are smooth and gradual, the leeward sides steep and sharp-edged. And along the crests, under certain wind conditions, the sand develops small parallel ridges called ripple marks, tiny hills running in lines, each one a few centimeters from the next, the whole pattern organized by the invisible rhythm of the wind. These ripple marks can be preserved in sandstone for millions of years. Geologists reading ancient rock sometimes find the fossilized ripple marks of long-gone winds, patterns made in sand that was still and soft and responsive to a breeze that blew more than 300 million years ago. The wind, long since gone, the record of its passing still there, still perfectly legible. Your goosebumps leave no such record. The skin settles, the moment passes, the hills subside, and only the feeling remains, soft and fading, and eventually just a memory of a memory. But the fact that it happened is not erased. Somewhere in the chemistry of your memory, the moment is noted. Something was felt. Something moved through. There is a concept in Japanese aesthetics called mono no aware, a phrase that is notoriously difficult to translate, but which captures, roughly, the poignant awareness of impermanence, the bittersweet recognition that things are beautiful, partly because they are fleeting. Cherry blossoms are the classic example, their beauty intensified by the knowledge that they will fall in a week or two. Mono no aware is, in part, a philosophy of goosebumps, because frisson, that shiver of beauty, is inseparable from the fleeting nature of the moment that causes it. A chord resolves. A voice reaches a note and holds it and then releases it. A landscape is lit by a particular quality of late afternoon light that will last, at most, 20 minutes before the sun shifts and the light becomes something slightly different and less specific. The beauty and the brevity are woven together. You cannot separate them. And so, the goosebump, in a way, is the body's acknowledgement of mono no aware, the physical response to the beauty that is here now and will not be here in quite this form again. The fact that goosebumps are involuntary is part of what makes them meaningful. You cannot choose to have them, not really. You can create conditions in which they're likely: a beautiful piece of music, a cool, quiet room, an openness to being moved. But the response itself is not in your hands. It arises without your permission. This is what the Japanese poet Matsuo Basho was getting at in his work, though he was writing about something different. The sense that the most profound moments are not manufactured but simply received. You put yourself in the way of beauty, and beauty does the rest. There is a growing area of research called awe science, the study of the emotion of awe and its effects on the human body and mind. Researchers at places like the University of California, Berkeley have been studying what happens when people experience genuine awe, the feeling that arises in the presence of something vast, complex, or deeply beautiful that exceeds your current understanding. Standing at the base of an enormous mountain, looking up at a sky full of stars from a place far from city lights, watching time-lapse footage of a thunderstorm from above, the lightning spreading across the clouds in branching patterns, reading a piece of writing that seems to contain more truth than words should be able to carry. Awe, researchers have found, has measurable effects on the body. It can reduce inflammatory markers in the blood. It can shift the nervous system toward a state of calm receptivity. It can make people feel, temporarily, that their personal worries are smaller and more manageable in the context of the vast and beautiful world. And awe frequently comes with goosebumps. Your skin, the largest organ, responding to the experience of something larger than yourself. Something about that feels right. The vastness expressing itself in the skin, in tiny, intimate hills along your arms. The biggest things arriving in the smallest physical expressions. A mountain, a chill, a few small hills on your forearm, and then smoothness again. The skin is in many ways the boundary between you and the world, the place where you end and everything else begins. And it is at this boundary, exactly here at this meeting place, that goosebumps occur. The world outside, cold air, a beautiful sound, a moment of connection. The body inside, erector pili muscles responding, chemistry cascading, warmth being managed, or emotion being registered. And right at the line between them, these small, temporary hills. In developmental biology, the skin and the nervous system share an origin. Very early in the development of an embryo, in the first few weeks of life, when the embryo is still smaller than a grain of rice, both the skin and the nervous system develop from the same layer of cells. They are, in a sense, siblings, estranged by development, one going deep inside, the other becoming the outer surface, but sharing the same embryonic origin, which might be why the skin is so responsive to the nervous system's messages. They speak the same ancestral language. The fact that you can feel goosebumps, that you have conscious awareness of them, is itself part of this story. There are sensory nerves in the skin around each hair follicle that detect the movement of the hair when it's raised. The tiny rising of the hair is felt as a light, almost electrical sensation, a gentle prickling. And this is carried back along the nervous system to your brain, where it becomes the sensation you recognize. So, goosebumps are not only a thing your body does, they're a thing your body does that it then tells you about. The skin acting, and then reporting its own action. Like a small diary entry. Something happened here. I responded. I wanted you to know. Human skin contains somewhere in the range of 4 million sensory receptor cells. These are cells specialized to detect different aspects of the world. Pressure, vibration, temperature, light touch, pain, the specific quality of slow social touch we talked about earlier. They are distributed unevenly across the skin's surface, with higher concentrations in areas that need finer sensitivity. The fingertips, the lips, the face, and lower concentrations in the back and the upper arms. The sensitivity of your fingertips is so precise that, with training, you can feel a raised dot just 0.013 millimeters high, less than the thickness of a human hair. With your fingertips, you can read a world of extraordinary subtlety. But the erector pili muscles are not in the fingertips. They're in the arms, the legs, the back, the neck, the broad, less fine-grained surfaces, the body's larger landscape. And when they respond, the response is large and visible, not precise and subtle. It's not a whisper, it's a wave. The fingertips tell you the texture of a single leaf. The erector pili muscles announce the presence of a cold wind or a beautiful thing. Both are forms of listening. Both are forms of knowing. There is a researcher named Matthew Sachs who, while a student at Harvard, conducted a small but much discussed study on the brains of people who experience frisson. Using brain scans and personality assessments, he found that people who frequently experience these beauty-induced shivers tend to have more neural connections between auditory processing regions and emotional processing regions than those who don't. More pathways, more channels. As if in these individuals the door between hearing and feeling is a little wider, a little more open, with more ways through. This research is early, and science is cautious about conclusions drawn from small studies. But the idea is a beautiful one regardless, that receptiveness to being moved by music or beauty might be in part a structural quality of the brain, something built in, the way a particular architecture of valleys and channels in a landscape determines how water flows through it. Some landscapes let the water run fast and wide and make rivers everywhere. Some hold it in still lakes. Both are beautiful. Both have their own quality of light. It's also worth noting that frisson can be cultivated, not manufactured, but made more likely. People who practice active, engaged, attentive listening, who put on music and listen with their full attention rather than as background sound, report experiencing frisson more frequently over time, as if the pathway between hearing and feeling already there becomes slightly more worn in, more accessible with use, like a trail through a meadow. The more it's walked, the more clearly defined it becomes. This is one of the reasons why music lovers often describe the experience of becoming a musician or a serious listener as one of increasing richness. Not that the music gets better, but that you get better at receiving it. More and more of it is able to reach you. More of it makes it through. The goosebumps become more frequent, not because the music is more beautiful, but because you have grown more capable of being moved. Which is, when you think about it, a lovely description of what it means to pay attention to the world over a lifetime. You grow more capable of being moved. More of beauty makes it through. Take a slow breath now, unhurried. Feel the air come into your lungs, expanding them softly, and then release it, easy and complete. There's no hurry here. The night is long and gentle, and there's no place this story needs to rush toward. Check out our playlist if you'd like more evenings like this one. It's a quiet collection, all of it unhurried, all of it made for moments exactly like the one you're in right now. Let's think now about what it means that goosebumps are universal. Every human being on earth gets them. Every culture, every language, every landscape. The people of the Arctic tundra, the Amazon basin, the Sahara, the Tibetan plateau, the Pacific Islands, all of them in a cool moment, in an emotionally resonant moment, feel the small hills rise. And not only that, every culture has noticed them and given them a name. This is a sign of something. Languages do not create names for things that don't matter. The fact that every human language has a word or phrase for goosebumps means that every human community found them worth noticing, found them worth discussing, found them worth passing down. In Mandarin, there's a phrase, chi ji pi ge da, which translates roughly as chicken skin bumps rising. In Hindi, there's a word, romanch, which describes the shiver of excitement or emotion, often mentioned in poetry and in contexts of spiritual experience. In Korean, there's sorium, which can describe both the chill of cold and the shiver of a deeply felt emotion. Each language arriving at the same phenomenon from a completely different direction, still landing on the same territory. The moment when something inside and something outside meet at the surface of the skin, and the skin responds. There are also cultural variations in how goosebumps are interpreted emotionally. In some traditions, the shiver of emotion, particularly in response to music or to a moment of spiritual significance, is seen as something close to sacred, a sign that the soul is responding to something real and true, a form of confirmation that what you are experiencing is genuine. In many West African musical traditions, there are specific moments in certain songs, particular rhythmic patterns or vocal techniques, that are considered complete only when the audience experiences them as a physical shiver. The performance is judged in part by whether it moves the body of the listener, not only the mind. The goosebump as a kind of vote. The skin saying, yes, this is true, this is real. There are gospel music traditions in the American South where the physical shiver during a song is understood as the presence of the Holy Spirit moving through the congregation. A room full of people all getting goosebumps at the same moment in response to the same music. This is experienced not as a biological coincidence, but as something that exceeds ordinary language. And perhaps it is both. Perhaps the biological and the transcendent are not as far apart as we sometimes assume. Perhaps the pathway through the auditory cortex and the nucleus accumbens and the autonomic nervous system leading to the small hills on the skin is simply one way of describing something that is also, from another angle, enormous and wordless and beyond full description. Both true at once. Both languages for the same thing. We are coming now toward the end of this long, quiet journey, but before we arrive there fully, let's spend a little time with the stars, because there is a kind of goosebump that comes from vastness, from the specific encounter with the scale of the universe. And it feels important to mention this here, at the quieter end of the evening. The observable universe, the part we can, in principle, detect with our instruments, is approximately 93 billion light years in diameter. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 year, which is approximately 9.46 trillion kilometers. The distances involved in even describing the universe are so far beyond any human scale of experience that numbers cease to be meaningful and become instead a kind of poetry, a way of pointing at something that cannot be fully held in the mind. And yet, here you are in your small, warm room on this particular evening, breathing softly, and you are made of the same matter as those distant reaches. The iron in your blood was forged in the cores of stars that exploded billions of years before the Earth existed. The calcium in your bones was made in a supernova. The carbon that forms the backbone of every molecule in your body was produced in stellar nucleosynthesis, the nuclear furnace at the heart of stars. You are, in the most literal possible sense, made of stars, and the stars are, in some sense, made of the same fundamental stuff as you. When you lie outside on a clear night and look up, or even when you simply imagine it right now, the deep blue-black sky above you, the cold air on your face, the stars so many and so still. There it is, the goosebump, the body responding to the encounter with something vastly larger than itself. The amygdala noting significance, the nervous system whispering, respond, the tiny hills rising. This is awe in its purest form, the specific quality of smallness within vastness that the human being is perhaps uniquely positioned to experience. Because we are large enough to know how small we are, and small enough to be genuinely humbled by what we know. A beetle does not experience awe looking at a mountain, most likely. It does not have the neural architecture for that particular form of self-placement within a larger context. But you do. You have the capacity to hold your own smallness and the universe's vastness in the same moment, and to feel something about that. And sometimes that feeling is a quiet chill, a row of small hills along the arm, the skin's gentle acknowledgement of everything it cannot contain. There is a term in the study of awe, the small self. When people experience genuine awe in nature, in music, in the presence of great architecture or vast landscapes or a sky full of stars, they often report a temporary shift in their sense of self. The ordinary concerns of daily life, which usually occupy so much foreground, become smaller and more manageable. The boundary of the self seems to loosen slightly. There's a feeling, however brief, of being part of something larger. Researchers have found that this temporary small self state is associated with reduced activity in the default mode network, the part of the brain associated with self-referential thinking, the internal monologue, the ongoing narrative of me and my concerns. Awe quiets that narrative. For a little while, the me becomes less insistent, and the skin, once again, writes this down in its small hills. Be sure to like the video if you've enjoyed this journey tonight, and do pass it along to anyone you think might like a quiet, unhurried evening like this one. We are here now in the very last part of this long, quiet night together. Your body has been doing extraordinary things throughout this entire conversation. Breathing, regulating its temperature, moving blood gently through its intricate channels, maintaining the precise chemistry that allows thought and feeling and sensation. Doing all of this silently, automatically, without asking your permission or your attention. Including perhaps raising a few small hills along your arms or the back of your neck at moments when something in these words caught you in some small, wordless way. Goosebumps are when you gather everything together and hold it softly, a kind of grace note. a small physical annotation in the ongoing text of your experience. Not essential, not urgent, just there, rising and settling, a gentle acknowledgement that you are a body in a world, and that the world keeps offering things worth noticing. The cool morning air, the piece of music that arrives at exactly the right time, the unexpected kindness, the night sky on a clear night, the ripple of wind across a field of grass, the moment in a conversation when something is said that you didn't know you needed to hear, your skin responding each time, tiny muscles contracting in coordinated waves, the same muscles that a cat uses to puff its fur against the cold, the same mechanism that a hedgehog relies on for its armor. Written into the deepest instructions of your body, unchanged across millions of years, still faithfully showing up to each cold morning and each beautiful thing. There is continuity in this, a thread that runs from the first small, warm-blooded creature to shiver in a prehistoric forest, all the way to you, here, now, in this quiet room. You are the current form of a very long story, and the story is not done. Breathe in slowly, all the way in, soft and full. Let the air rest there for just a moment, and then let it go. Feel the weight of your body against whatever is supporting it, the way gravity holds you gently and completely without effort on your part. The warmth gathered around you, the quiet of the room, somewhere in your skin at this moment. Hundreds of thousands of tiny hair follicles are resting. The erector pili muscles are soft, relaxed, unprotracted. No cold, no awe, no shiver of beauty asking anything of them right now. Just peace. The skin at rest. The body held. The mind loosening its grip on the day. You don't need to go anywhere from here. You don't need to think about anything in particular. The world is still doing everything it does. The stars are still moving in their slow courses. The tides are still responding to the pull of the moon. Somewhere, a field of grass is bending in a night wind and looking from above like the most peaceful thing you've ever seen. And you are here, warm and still. The night is soft around you. Let your eyes stay closed, or let them close if they haven't yet. Let the small hairs on your arms rest. Let the day settle to the bottom of you like silt settling in still water, patient and unhurried. You are safe. You are warm. Everything that needed to happen today has happened. Everything that needs to happen tomorrow can wait until tomorrow. Right now, there is only this. You're breathing slow and full. The quiet of the room. The feeling of being held by something simple and constant and reliable. Gravity. Warmth, the soft dark of the night. A long time ago, before you were you, before your particular arrangement of cells and chemistry and memories existed at all, there were creatures in the world who felt the cold of evening and raised their hairs against it. Creatures who sat at the entrance to their shelters and watched the sky go dark and felt something they didn't have words for. Something like peace. Something like this. Rest now. You've been everything you needed to be today. The rest can wait. The Sleepy Science Channel thanks you for spending this evening here in this quiet space. learning the small and lovely story of your own skin. If you'd like more evenings like this one, our playlist is always here, full of soft things and slow things and all the small wonders hidden in the ordinary world. You are still here, and that is a quiet kind of lovely thing. Perhaps you haven't fallen asleep yet. Perhaps you're in that soft middle place, not quite awake, not quite gone, where thoughts move slowly like clouds crossing a pale winter sky, unhurried and without particular destination. That is a fine place to be, a good place. Stay there as long as you like. Let's keep going, gently. We've talked about the skin and the muscles and the stars. Let's go somewhere even quieter now. Let's go to water. Water is one of the most extraordinary substances in the natural world, and it has a relationship with temperature that mirrors in its own way the goosebumps relationship with cold. When water is cooled to near freezing, it does something unusual, something that almost no other substance does. It becomes less dense. It expands slightly. And because of this expansion, ice floats. This seems like a small thing. It is not a small thing. Because ice floats, the surfaces of lakes and ponds freeze in winter while the water beneath stays liquid. The ice forms a lid, an insulating layer that protects everything below from the deepest cold. The fish, the water plants, the microorganisms that form the base of the aquatic food chain, all of them survive the winter beneath their roof of ice, in water that stays just above freezing, still and dark and remarkably safe. If ice sank, if water behaved like most substances and became denser as it cooled, lakes would freeze from the bottom up. The ice would accumulate at the deepest point and work its way upward, and most freshwater life as we know it would not exist. The fact that you can lie here tonight, warm and breathing, is connected in long and winding ways to this one quiet property of water, that it expands when it freezes and therefore floats. Your body is mostly water. Somewhere between 55 and 65% of your mass, depending on your age and composition, is water. The water in your body is in constant motion, carried by the blood flowing through cells, regulated with extraordinary precision by the kidneys, which filter approximately 180 liters of fluid per day and return almost all of it, refined and balanced, to the body. 180 liters per day, while you sleep, while you dream, while you lie here listening to a quiet voice talking about small things. Your kidneys working through the night without any instruction from you. Water cycling and returning, patient and exact. The water in your body right now has been water for a very long time. The hydrogen and oxygen atoms that make up each water molecule are ancient beyond imagination. The hydrogen atoms in particular were formed in the first minutes after the Big Bang, more than 13 billion years ago. The oxygen was made inside stars. They combined into water molecules in the cold reaches of space, and eventually, in ways too long and complex to trace, arrived here. In a cloud, in rain, in a river, in a plant, in food, in you. The water you carry in your body right now has been rain. It has been ocean. It has been ice. It has been the morning dew on grass in a field that no longer exists. It has been drunk by creatures whose names we don't know and whose fossils we have never found. And tonight, it is here, inside you, warm and circulating, doing its 10,000 quiet jobs. This is the kind of thought that, on a clear night with a cool breeze, might raise a small shiver along your arms. The vastness of the ordinary, the age of the everyday. Your water, remembering all the places it has been. The goosebump, perhaps, is the body's way of acknowledging that it contains multitudes. If you're still with us on this quiet journey, we'd love a comment from you. Tell us what small, ordinary thing has surprised you lately. We find those moments so worth collecting. There is a particular quality of silence that exists in certain places in the natural world. Not the absence of sound exactly, but a particular texture of quiet that feels different from ordinary quietness. The silence of a forest after snow, the silence of the open ocean far from shore, the silence of a high mountain pass where the wind has temporarily stopped and the whole world seems to be holding its breath. People who have experienced these silences often describe them as deeply moving. Some describe a feeling that is close to awe, the same small self-sensation, the same loosening of the ordinary mental chatter, and sometimes, in these silences, goosebumps. Sound, it turns out, is the movement of pressure waves through a medium, usually air. When something vibrates, it pushes the air molecules around it, and those molecules push the ones next to them, and a wave of compressed and expanded air moves outward in all directions at approximately 343 meters per second. When this wave reaches your ear, it moves the eardrum, a thin membrane about 8 to 10 millimeters in diameter, stretched across the ear canal like the skin of the smallest possible drum. The eardrum vibrates in response to these pressure waves, and those vibrations are transmitted through 3 tiny bones, the malleus, the incus, and the stapes, which are the smallest bones in the human body. The stapes is smaller than a grain of rice. These 3 tiny bones amplify the vibration and carry it to the cochlea, a fluid-filled, snail-shaped structure in the inner ear where the mechanical vibration is converted into electrical signals that the brain can read. All of this, the pressure wave, the eardrum, the 3 tiny bones, the fluid of the cochlea, happens so quickly and so automatically that by the time you are consciously aware that you have heard something, the information has already been processed, assessed, routed to the appropriate brain regions, and responded to. You heard something beautiful before you knew you heard it. The goosebump was already rising before your conscious mind had finished processing what it was responding to. This is the speed of the nervous system, the speed of the body, always slightly ahead of awareness, always already responding, already making meaning, already having feelings before the thinking mind arrives to give them names. In a very quiet room, a room much quieter than most rooms we inhabit, the human ear can detect sounds so faint that they move the eardrum by a distance smaller than the diameter of a hydrogen atom. a distance so small it barely exists, and yet heard. Your ears reading the world in pressure waves so subtle they are almost hypothetical. And from those almost hypothetical waves, sometimes music. And from music, sometimes a shiver. And from the shiver, small hills rising along your arms. A hydrogen atom-thin movement of membrane, translated step by patient step into a row of goosebumps on your forearm. The body is a long and extraordinary sentence. Let's think now about hair itself, the thing that the erector pili muscles are raising when they produce a goosebump. We've been talking all this time about hair as a vehicle for this response, and it deserves its own moment of quiet attention. Human hair is made primarily of a protein called keratin, the same protein that forms fingernails and toenails, and also the hooves of horses, the claws of eagles, the scales of pangolins, the horn of a rhinoceros, and the baleen of whales. Keratin is one of the workhorses of the biological world, strong, flexible, waterproof, produced in cells, and then exported outward as a structural material. Your hair, the rhino's horn, the whale's filter, all variations on the same molecular theme. Each hair on your body grows from a follicle, that small tunnel in the skin. At the base of the follicle is a structure called the hair bulb, where cells divide rapidly and push upward, stacking on top of each other, being converted to keratin as they move up and losing their living contents in the process. By the time a cell has become part of the visible hair shaft, it is no longer alive. Hair itself is not alive. It is a structure produced by living cells, but the shaft you can see, the part you touch, the part that gets wet in the rain, is dead material. And yet it grows, produced continuously by the living cells below, pushed upward at a rate of approximately 15 centimeters per year for scalp hair, slower for eyebrows and lashes. The hair follicle cycles through phases of growth and rest, growing for years in some cases before entering a resting phase and eventually releasing the hair, which falls out and is replaced. You shed between 50 and 100 scalp hairs each day, on average. Each one replaced by a new hair growing from the same follicle. The same follicle that has its erector pili muscle attached. The same follicle that participates in the goosebump response again and again through many lifetimes of individual hairs. The follicle persists, the hair is renewed, the muscle remains ready. There is something quietly reassuring about that continuity, the structures that make you remain while their contents are replaced. You are, over a long enough time, rebuilt while remaining recognizably yourself. The same you, wearing new materials. Hair varies enormously across the human family. Different textures, different densities, different colors, different rates of growth. This variation is entirely normal and reflects both genetics and the extraordinary diversity of human biology. But the erector pili muscle is the same. The response is the same. In every variation of human hair across every population on Earth, the tiny muscle is there, ready to raise its particular hair in the particular way of goosebumps. Universally present, endlessly variable in its expression, like the weather, like music, like the feeling of being briefly and beautifully moved. There is a field of research called psychophysiology, the study of the relationship between psychological states and physical processes. It sits at the boundary between psychology and biology, in exactly the territory that goosebumps occupy, the place where feeling becomes physical, where the inner life expresses itself in the body's language. Researchers in psychophysiology use goosebumps, specifically frisson, as a kind of window into emotional and aesthetic experience, precisely because they are involuntary and visible. You cannot fake a goosebump. You cannot consciously produce one on demand or suppress one reliably if something truly moves you. They are, in a sense, an honest report, a reading of something genuine. This is why some researchers have used frisson as a dependent variable in studies of music perception, of aesthetic experience, of empathy and social connection. The goosebump as a data point, as a small objective truth about a subjective experience. There is something a little poignant about that, the most intimate, wordless response of the body being measured with electrodes and thermometers and camera footage. But there is also something beautiful in the scientific impulse to pay careful, systematic attention to the small things, to say, this matters, this tiny event, this brief ripple across the skin. Let's look at it closely. Let's try to understand it. That impulse, the impulse to look carefully at ordinary things and find depth in them, is, in a way, the same impulse that makes music give us goosebumps. Both are forms of paying attention. Both are responses to the world that say, there is more here than immediately meets the eye. There is something worth slowing down for. The ocean surface at sunset carries light differently depending on the angle of observation and the state of the water's surface. A calm sea at golden hour absorbs some wavelengths of light and reflects others, producing a color that is not quite gold and not quite orange and not quite anything that has a clean English name. Sailors have watched this color for millennia. Painters have tried and sometimes almost succeeded in capturing it. Poets have reached toward it in metaphor. That color, which cannot quite be named, which changes completely in 5 minutes as the sun drops lower, that color has given people goosebumps. Not because it is cold, not because it is surprising, but because it is exactly itself, unrepeatable and present, and suffused with the particular quality of light that exists at no other time of day. Your body at the edge of a beach watching that light, responding with its small hills, the skin marking the moment. Something was here. Something was felt. Even if there are no words for it, rest here for a moment in that thought. Feel the warmth of the room around you, and let the unnamed colors of imaginary sunsets move through your mind, slow and golden. There's no rush. The evening is patient. In the natural world, there are many creatures that have developed remarkable sensitivity to temperature changes, far beyond what human skin can detect. Some of these sensitivities, interestingly, sit in the same conceptual territory as goosebumps, bodies reading the world, responding to cold, registering the difference between here and there, now and then. Pit vipers, snakes like rattlesnakes and copperheads, have small heat-sensitive organs called pit organs located between the eye and the nostril on each side of the head. These organs can detect temperature differences as small as 0.003 degrees Celsius, which is more than 10 times more sensitive than the most sensitive human thermometer. They can detect the warmth of a small mouse from nearly a meter away. The world the pit viper inhabits is, in a sense, a thermal world, a map of warm and cool in which every object has a temperature signature. Every movement creates a shift in the thermal landscape. The snake navigates this world with its pit organs the way we navigate ours with our eyes. Our skin detects temperature too, of course, but not with anything approaching that precision. Our cold receptors can detect a drop of a few degrees. Our warm receptors arise. But 0.003 degrees is beyond us. The snake's thermal sensitivity makes our skin's reading seem gentle and approximate by comparison. And yet, our skin's relationship with temperature is not only about measurement, it's about meaning. The cool air on your face in autumn doesn't just register as a temperature reading. It carries associations, memories, the particular emotional weight of autumn itself. The smell of leaves, the quality of late afternoon light, the feeling of a sweater for the first time after summer. Temperature for us is never just temperature. It is always also everything else it has ever meant. This is perhaps the most human thing about goosebumps, that they are never purely physical. They are always also emotional, always also connected to memory, association, meaning. The cool air doesn't just trigger the erector pili muscles. It also simultaneously triggers everything you have ever felt on a cool morning, everything cool air has ever been for you, the response and the meaning arriving together. There is a physiological structure called the spinothalamic tract, a pathway in the spinal cord that carries information about temperature and pain from the skin to the brain. This tract is ancient, found in all vertebrates, and it runs alongside pathways that carry information about emotional experience. The closeness of these pathways in the nervous system may be part of why temperature and emotion are so intertwined in our experience, why warmth feels safe and cold can feel threatening, why we describe emotional coldness and emotional warmth as if they were physical temperatures. Cold shoulder, warm welcome, icy stare, the warmth of a smile. Our language knows this before neuroscience did. Our language, built from centuries of accumulated human experience, already understood that temperature and emotion live in neighboring rooms, and goosebumps sit at the doorway between them. Do check the playlist if you'd like more of these quiet evenings. There are stories there about rain, about forests, about the deep ocean floor, and the slow language of mountains. All of them unhurried, all of them made for exactly the pace of right now. Sometimes the most extraordinary things about the human body are not the dramatic ones. The heart beating 100,000 times a day, the brain's 100 billion neurons, but the very small, very specific, very unremarkable things. The fact that you have approximately 5 million hair follicles on your body. The fact that each one has a tiny muscle. The fact that the muscle is attached to the follicle at a specific angle, not perpendicular, but oblique, so that when it contracts, it pulls the follicle sideways slightly, causing the hair to stand upright and the skin around it to dimple into a small hill. The angle of attachment, the geometry of a goosebump. This angle, typically somewhere between 40 and 60 degrees from vertical, is not accidental. It is the result of many millions of years of refinement. Hairs attached at this angle, when raised, produce the most effective insulation layer, upright enough to trap air, but not so rigid that they break. The erector pili muscle attached at this particular angle is the most mechanically efficient arrangement for doing what it needs to do. The geometry is solved, and it has been solved for a very, very long time. There are fossils of mammal-like reptiles, the synapsids, from approximately 300 million years ago. These creatures were the ancestors of all modern mammals, including you. They were covered in scales, not hair. But at some point between 300 and 200 million years ago, in this lineage, hair appeared. We don't have direct fossil evidence of when hair first evolved, because hair doesn't fossilize well. But we know it was present by the time the first true mammals appeared, approximately 200 million years ago. And with hair came, almost certainly, the erector pili muscle, because hair without a raising mechanism is less effective insulation than hair that can be voluntarily raised. So the tiny muscle in your skin is at least 200 million years old as a functional adaptation. It was present in small, shrew-like mammals moving through the undergrowth of Jurassic forests, under a sky that still had flying reptiles in it. It was present in the first animals to nurse their young with milk. It has been there through every iteration, every refinement, every branching of the mammalian family tree. It arrived here, in your skin, intact and ready, after a journey of unimaginable length. You are the current address of a very old inheritance, and every goosebump you experience is a message from that inheritance, a quiet greeting across 200 million years of time. Hello, it says. We are still here. We are still doing this small, faithful thing. There is something we haven't talked about yet, and it feels right to arrive at it here, near the end. The social dimension of goosebumps, and what it means when they appear in groups. Music concerts, live performances, religious gatherings, sports events. Any occasion where many human beings are together listening to the same thing, moved by the same moment. Researchers who have studied music at live concerts have found that frisson is significantly more likely to occur when people are listening together than when they're listening alone. The same piece of music, the same moment, but in a room with other people who are also present, also listening, also open, the probability of a goosebump rises. Why should this be? Part of the answer may lie in the mirror neuron system, a network of brain cells that respond both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing that same action. Mirror neurons are part of our capacity for empathy, for imitation, for the fundamental human ability to feel what others feel. When you see someone else moved by music, when you observe the slight change in their expression, the stillness of their body, the subtle shift that happens when something lands, your mirror neuron system responds. You feel faintly a reflection of what they feel, and this social resonance can lower the threshold for your own frisson. Their response primes yours. A room full of people, all priming each other, all lowering each other's thresholds, all creating a shared emotional field in which goosebumps are more likely than they would be alone. This is one of the reasons why live music can be transcendent in a way that recorded music sometimes isn't. Not because the sound is necessarily better, but because you are embedded in a community of listeners who are all in the process of being moved, and you are moved by their moving, and they are moved by yours, in a gentle, wordless, reciprocal loop. Shared goosebumps, shared skin speaking the same language at the same time. There's something in this that explains why humans have always gathered to make and hear music together, not just because it's efficient or because it's pleasant, but because it generates something that cannot be generated alone. A kind of resonance that moves across bodies, a wave of shared feeling, visible in the small hills rising on 100 pairs of arms at the same moment. An invisible thing expressing itself in the most physical possible way. The goosebump as a form of community, as a way of saying, I am here with all of you in this moment, feeling this together. Breathe in slowly, hold it soft and gentle, and release. Feel the quiet room around you. Even alone, you are connected to everyone who has ever been moved by a piece of music, by a cool morning, by the unexpected kindness of the world. You are part of that long, continuous community of small shivers. Leave a like if this quiet journey has been good company tonight. We are nearly at the very end now, the last of these extra hours together, and the night is deep and soft around both of us. Let's finish not with science exactly, but with something that feels like the space between science and the world, the space where facts become feelings, where the explanation and the experience exist side by side, neither one canceling the other out. Think about the last time you had goosebumps, not from cold necessarily, but from something that moved you, something beautiful or vast or unexpectedly tender. Maybe it was a piece of music. Maybe it was a view from somewhere high, the world spread out below you, the horizon impossibly far. Maybe it was a moment with someone you love, a quiet moment, not dramatic, not in a film kind of way, just real and present and unmistakably good. Whatever it was, your body marked it. Without your instruction, without deliberation, without asking whether it was appropriate or whether you should allow it, Your body said, this matters. And it wrote a small note in your skin. We have spent this entire long evening talking about the mechanism, the muscles, the hormones, the neural pathways, the evolutionary history, the physics of sound waves, and the geometry of hair follicles. And all of that is true and real and worth knowing. But the mechanism is not the meaning. The mechanism is how. The meaning is yours. The meaning is that you are a creature capable of being moved by the world. That beauty can reach you through something as small as a shiver. That your skin, this boundary, this meeting place between you and everything else, is sensitive enough and old enough and connected enough to everything that came before you to respond. That is not a small thing. In the deep dark of the ocean, at depths where no light reaches, there are fish that produce their own light. Bioluminescent creatures glowing softly in the permanent night of the deep water. Some of them have light organs along their sides, called photophores, arranged in rows like small lit windows. When they move, the lights move with them. When they're still, the lights are still. In the darkness, they are visible by their own light. You are something like this in your own way, not in the dark water, but in the ordinary world. And your light is not bioluminescence, but something harder to name. The capacity to be moved, to respond, to feel, to mark moments with small hills on your skin, to be unmistakably and irreducibly here. There is a kind of moss that grows on the sides of stones in shaded, damp places, in forests, in mountain ravines, on the stones beside slow streams. It grows slowly. It takes years to establish itself, years to fill a small patch of stone with its soft green. When you touch it, it is extraordinarily soft, softer than most textiles, softer than anything manufactured. Just soft, living, ancient green against your palm. Moss has been on Earth for approximately 450 million years. It was here before the forests, before the insects, before the fish had finished developing fins. It was here before almost everything you can see from any window. And it is still here, soft and patient on its stone, in its shaded place. The erector pili muscle, at 200 million years old, is almost young by comparison. There are forms of patience in the world that exceed our capacity to imagine them. And yet, we share this world with them, the moss on its stone, the tiny muscle in our skin, the hydrogen atoms in our water, all of it in the same moment, together, sharing the world quietly, each thing doing its particular job without complaint or urgency. Let that settle into you now, that sense of the world as a deeply patient place, full of things that have been here longer than thought and will be here when thought is finished. And you, here now, warm and breathing, held in the middle of all of it. Your skin is soft. Your muscles are relaxed. Your breathing is slow. There is nothing asked of you right now. The night is doing what the night does, holding everything in its dark, even hands, letting the world rest. And you can rest inside of it. You can let your body be as soft as moss on stone, as still as deep water, as quiet as a forest after snow. The goosebumps, if they came tonight, have settled. The small hills have returned to smooth. The skin is just skin again, warm, continuous, held close to you by nothing more than gravity and warmth. You are here. You are whole. You are exactly where you need to be. The Sleepy Science Channel will be here whenever you need it. Another quiet evening. Another soft set of small facts about the extraordinary, ordinary world. The playlist is full and waiting, unhurried and ready for you. But for now, let go of the day completely. Let the thoughts drift wherever they drift. Let your body be heavy and warm against whatever holds you. Let the silence be enough. It is more than enough. Good night. Sleep softly. You were wonderful company tonight.